you've, from my understanding, have gotten to speak to a lot of people that potentially, and I don't know that I can, verify any of this, but that potentially are, directly linked to some type of program. And these are your confidential sources. So I won't ask you about who these sources are, or this is.
I couldn't tell you anyway.
And that's part of your journalistic integrity, and I think that that's really important to adhere to as someone asking you these questions. I want you to have those connections, so I don't want to jeopardize any of that. But what I will ask you is, out of all of these claims, what's a claim that came to you that you couldn't report on, not because of national security or secrecy or giving up your source, but because it was like an incredible claim that you just couldn't verify? Is there anything that sticks out to you that just goes, well, it's an outlier, or it's, some type of anomalous piece of information?
The one thing I can't put my finger on and say categorically, hand on heart, I believe is real, but I suspect there's something to it, is the idea of a secret space program. And there was a conversation I had with someone who I trust, who got very emotional and described a friend of his dying on the moon.
Wow.
And
what do you make of that?
I didn't know what to make of it.
Because you have someone crying, telling you this. Clearly they're affected by the information they're giving you.
Yeah. Basically, I just don't know. I mean, I think a lot of the Corey Good claims, Darcy Weir's done a great show about this recently. A lot of the wacky claims about the secret space program, I suspect, are almost deliberate intelligence community disinformation to discredit the whole idea of a secret space program. What I'm talking about is what, oddly enough, Tom DeLonge has come closest to hinting at, which is that, are we operating non-human craft that we've somehow been able to jury-rig using human psionic operators?
And using those craft to go to the moon and beyond, perhaps?
To the moon and beyond. I mean, I've even been told, one of the things I haven't been able to confirm or corroborate to my satisfaction, and normally when I corroborate something, I want to hear it from 2 or 3 independent witnesses who don't know each other. And I'm hearing the same consistent story. That's what I've heard from people about the legacy program. I've spoken to over a dozen people, probably 15 plus people, who either have operated or are operating inside what we would call the legacy retrieval of non-human craft, and reverse engineering program.
Wow.
I'm in no doubt whatsoever that exists. You're asking me, what have I been told about, but I haven't been able to confirm to my satisfaction?
That's right.
Is the qualitative nature of what's called the secret space program.
Now you're referring to what, famously Gary McKinnon had also spoken about when he'd gotten into the back end of NASA and saw these ship names that weren't actual ship names, and people he couldn't verify, and then seeing, this craft on a photo.
Yeah. I mean, I love the fact that one of them is called the Hillenkotter.
Right.
Because Roscoe Hillenkotter, of course, the founding director of the CIA.
And part of Majestic 12.
Part of Majestic 12 was also one of the biggest UFO disclosure activists of his time in the 1950s. So I love the idea that the Roscoe Hillenkotter is a secret spacecraft.
Tip of the hat.
If that's really the case. I don't know what to make of Gary McKinnon other than the fact that I find him highly credible. He doesn't strike me as somebody who's lying.
It's one of the few other corroborating sort of anecdotal pieces of evidence that we have confirming this secret space program, other than perhaps Hymashed, right, who also mentions this as well. And so
there are other data points, though, too. I mean, for example, there was in California, I think at Edwards Air Force Base, a separate astronaut program, and they were in training. They were being taught. They were non-NASA astronauts. They were US Air Force astronauts. And a lot of people don't know this. There was a separate space program that's officially acknowledged that was training astronauts for the US Air Force. Now, officially, that was shut down. I don't think it was.
You think it was just...
I think it went black.
You went black.
And I think what's happening is I suspect that they're operating out of deep underground military bases in different parts of the USA, continental USA.
Nothing to do with Space Force.
I suspect they are linked to Space Force.
But not directly, as in like these are people from Space Force going out there. These are Space Force is probably like, what do you make of it? I make of it more of like an intelligence gathering sort of unit.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird because Australia has actually started recruiting for its own equivalent of Space Force.
Really?
And ostensibly, that's for purely and simply data gathering, monitoring space junk and all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah, or keeping an eye on, satellites and NRO activity.
I don't know. I don't know whether the program that I'm describing is part of Space Force or not. I would be very surprised if the senior command of Space Force was oblivious to its existence.
Has anyone that you've spoken to from the program ever alluded to something like this?
Yes.
They have?
Yeah.
Were any of them sort of read in on these programs?
Yeah.
The secret space stuff?
Yeah. Or they claimed to be.
They claim to be. More than one?
No, just one. That's
just
why.
Just one.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the conversation that I had with somebody who described a friend dying on the moon.
How did they die?
I don't know. Wouldn't tell me.
He wouldn't tell you, but he said he was dying on the moon.
Died.
Oh, he died on the moon. What other information did they give you? Is that it? Is it? I had a friend that died on the moon. And they started crying.
So frustrating. Do you get the feeling?
So
I sometimes feel in this whole story, I'm walking through a room blindfold and I'm just grabbing stuff as I'm going through.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
And it's so frustrating. And the thing that really gets me...
You just want to shake someone sometimes. Be like,
well, the thing that really frustrates me is if people knew how hard it is to get even that.
Yeah.
That conversation took 3.5, 4 years.
To nurture,
to get that person to the point where they would sit down with me. They would not communicate on any known comms system.
Did you seek them out or did they find you?
Well, let's go to the basis of how I found people originally.
Sure.
The way I approached this as a journalist was to basically ask myself if there was a program, what sort of people would be in it and what sort of scientists would be involved in it. And so I targeted particularly scientists and wrote letters to them, good old-fashioned handwritten letters, and posted them with a stamp on an envelope, knowing that that's non-digital, so reasonably less trackable. And that was phenomenally effective. In a couple of cases, I literally went and dropped a letter in a letterbox without a stamp to make a point that I'd been there and told them that I was in town for a day or so, and if they wanted to, they could come and talk to me. And in a couple of cases, they did.
Wow.
And it was because what I was doing was trying to indicate I was following tradecraft. I was respecting the fact that people have no idea how easy it is to monitor using your phone.
Yeah.
That's what you've got to do to convince these people that you're serious. And it's funny because one of the things that I found was most effective was sometimes some people were so enthusiastic about speaking to me, they'd ring me on open comms. Like they'd contact me through something as wide open as Signal or WhatsApp, because it's not hard to obtain my Signal. And even though those things are supposedly encrypted, I would never use those to communicate with the most sensitive sources that I try and communicate with.
Of course.
I use dead letter drops on the dark web.
Or in person.
Yeah. Or postal mail, just saying, look, I'm going to be here on this date. If you want to get hold of me, you can contact me in this way. And that's what you've got to do. You've got to operate like a spy.
How are those interactions with these people? Are these people shaky? Are they paranoid? Are they looking over their shoulder constantly? How do they feel about this? And do they know you prior? Are they...
Well, it's easier now.
Right.
I mean, it's happening a lot more for
being
me
a public
now
figure.
Because I've got the News Nation role that I do.
Right.
And I think that really helps because people know me. They feel familiar with me. And I hope... I mean, I really do. I take this really seriously. There was a kind of a realization moment for me where I met somebody in a Georgetown bar in Washington who was Normally I'd see them in uniform, and the uniform they were wearing was extremely senior, and I knew them from another story that I'd done, and they were incredibly generous to me. And I remember they leaned across the table to me and said, "It's real, Roscoe." And I remember I went back to my hotel that night, and I thought, holy shit. Because I was guilty of starting out with a confirmational bias. I was doing what a journalist should not do.
Right.
I'd started out thinking, being a smug little smartass, I was going to disprove this UFO nonsense. I really did think it was nonsense. And the interesting thing was, the more I got into it, good people are telling me this is real. And this is the thing I wanted to emphasize. These people are patriots. What they're angry about isn't the program. They're proud of the program. They're really excited about the technologies that are being worked on and discovered. They want you, the world, the public, to know about it. And they don't think there's any really good reason that it not be revealed to the public. There's two issues. And I don't agree with the analysis that most of the detractors suggest, which is that if you reveal the first, you have to reveal the second. The first issue is there a non-human intelligence engaging with this planet? And the answer to that, indubitably, is yes. The second issue is, does the public have a right to know the details of the technology and the developments that we've advanced as a result of the recovery of that technology? Now, the argument that I get back from people, and I've spoken to people in the Pentagon and in the intelligence community, and they tell me they think if you reveal the first, you're going to have to reveal the latter. And I think that's the biggest impediment right now to any kind of government admission. They think that if they tell the public, yes, we've recovered alien spacecraft, yes, there really is non-human intelligence engaging with this planet, and we've been lying to you for the last 80 years, they think that that will lead to a catastrophic rollout of what we've got.
Sure. Yeah. And also having to explain perhaps so many other things.
Oh, and the murders and
the murders, the cover-ups,
yeah.
But also perhaps the phenomenon itself. Like, I mean, I personally, and I don't know how you feel about this, but I'm pretty certain that the phenomenon isn't a singular thing that we're dealing with. It is probably multifaceted.
Yep.
It is probably dynamic and changing, and it is we're aware of it. And there's all sorts of levels to this that we're interacting with.
Yep.
I don't think that it's simply explained away by even words like non-human intelligence. Like, that's such a broad term. People are going to ask for specifics, and they're going to be like, what do you mean? Where are they from? And that's where it gets murky for them, because they have to go, oh, they're from here, but they're also from there, and they're from under there, and they're from, and they're from a different time, and there's all these interactions that we're potentially having.
Sure.
Which will open a can of worms. So it's not only, oh, there's aliens, it's what are the aliens?
My issue is, I don't think there's going to be any kind of government admission about disclosure. I don't think Mark Christopher Lee is right. I'm certainly not being told by anybody I'm speaking to that there's going to be any kind of Trump announcement anytime soon. I know Trump knows, and it's public that I've spoken to his son, and I know that there is interest in the family in disclosure and seeing things coming out, but I don't think there is any intention at the moment by Donald Trump to tell the world what he's been told privately, which is that there is a non-human intelligence and that we have recovered craft and that we are doing a retrieval and reverse engineering program. I don't buy the idea that to reveal the existence of a non-human intelligence engaging with this planet inevitably leads to the forced revelation of weaponry and technology that we've developed. In the same way that when we developed the nuclear bomb, you and I don't know how to make a thermonuclear bomb, and neither should we ever. And if it's true, for example, that we've developed scalar weapons or particle beam weapons as a result of recovered technology, I don't think anyone should know that. God help us if that gets into the hands of a terrorist group or our rivals. I can understand why we'd want to keep that confidential from Russia or China, who are equally in a race to try and develop the same technology after doing their own retrievals. I'm also in no doubt about that at all. So I'm not trying to be an apologist for the national security state, but I think what they've done is they've locked themselves into a position that I think is unreasonable. And they've convinced themselves that if they reveal one, they have to reveal the other. And I don't accept that one follows the other.
I agree with that. And I also think that it is unfortunate that the bearers of this paradigm-shifting secret are people with guns.
Yeah.
It's the most tragic thing that exists, because the mere idea that we are being visited or interacting with in some way this other intelligence is a great philosophical question about our humanity, and by default we default to, well, we got to hurry up and make weapons before they make weapons. Like, hold on a second. We're talking about interacting with these beautiful, potentially, things that could teach us so many things about who we are and where we're from, and we go straight to that. The conversation skipped a beat. Like, we were closer, I think, to collective disclosure in the 50s than we are now, when people were talking about space brothers and putting the nukes away and Venusians coming down. Like, I think that was probably a step in the right direction.
Sure.
Versus what we're doing now is completely just shutting down and militarizing and making everything, a national security issue.